podcast can only be an hour long because that's how long it takes for your body to be completely filled with fluid.
Butterscotch
shenanigans. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 127 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I tie tin cans together and then send bites through them.
I'm Sam, and I make pictures.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is December 3rd, 2017.
Birthday is one of my favorite days.
Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything can happen on this show. There will be profanity, so if you're a child, get out of here. Let's talk about the news, gentlemen.
Well, welcome to December.
Welcome to December.
I felt like this month would... Well, actually, I felt like November would never arrive. And I didn't even realize November happened.
Yeah.
And now it's December.
We got one day of November, and now it's December. But it's summer now, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, St. Louis's weather is misbehaving.
We went to
be a calm word
it's
for
flying
it.
out the rails. We went to cut
degrees.
down Christmas trees yesterday. And I was just out there in a t-shirt.
It was 60 degrees.
Wearing sunglasses and a t-shirt. Cutting down
I got sweaty. I
think I got a little sunburned.
Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah, nowadays you got to bring your sunscreen and your beach towel to go cut down your Christmas tree.
So those of you who are still on the fence about global warming, you maybe get off that fence.
Get off that fence.
Just look around.
Because that fence is getting real warm. It's going to burn your ass.
Yeah.
So in the news this week, we got a letter sent to our mailbox at mailbox.bscotch.net. No, bit.ly.
Both of them work.
Is that right? Yeah.
I think they both work. Mailbox.bscotch.net.
It was a box filled with how many varieties of M&Ms?
Like 6, I think.
I think 9.
There were a lot.
Was it that many?
Yes.
I think 9, possibly 9 to 30 varieties of M&Ms. M&Ms we didn't even know existed.
Like
coffee?
Yeah, coffee. That was
Coffee M&Ms. They have M&Ms, which is there's M&Ms inside of other M&Ms. It's like an M&M
meme, right?
turducken.
I heard you like M&Ms, so we put M&Ms inside your M&Ms, right?
Yeah. But then they've got kind of the thing called M&M's mouth surprise, where they just threw Reese's, Skittles, and M&M's all into one bag, and then you just go for it. It comes with a blindfold.
I thought this was real for a second, and I was like, that is the most horrible thing. I didn't see that bag. Mouth surprise.
And
they
they
also
also
have
have
mouth surprise.
They also have M&M's Premium, which it comes in a velvet bag, and every M&M is individually wrapped in a gold foil.
Yeah. Those are real expensive.
Horrible for the environment, but it feels very luxurious.
It's very luxurious.
There's probably a BuzzFeed video about taste testing your cheapo M&Ms versus these gold wrapped M&Ms.
Yeah. And so we got this box of M&Ms, and we're like, what the hell is this? We started eating them, and then we saw there's a note, and it was sent from Dwarven Jester.
Thanks for the M&Ms.
Thanks for the M&Ms, as well as last week. Was it last week we talked about meat, peace, ween traditions? Or
One of the 2 weeks, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our own holiday now called Meat, Peace, Ween, which occurs between Halloween and Thanksgiving.
Yep.
It's where you get together with all your friends and you gather around the meat piece, and then you partake of its strength. And so we got some extra lore or extra traditions from Dwarven Jester regarding the M&Ms. So essentially,
And casting lots.
Essentially the new tradition is you have a cauldron at Meat Peace Ween, and you take every kind of M&M that you can find, and you mix them into the cauldron, and then you all plunge your hands into the cauldron and take as many M&Ms as you can. So, should I read
a little snippet of that lore? It was written like almost like a Bible entry for how to do your holiday. So it's very nice.
Yeah. So the lore says, and so it shall come to pass that a stranger from the east, who is both diminutive and amusing, shall present a gift of lots unto the wrangler of those whose shenanigans are butterscotchy, and those lots shall number in the tens, as double digits is the threshold from some to lots. The wrangler shall then cast the lots into the Meat Peace Ween cauldron, and then shalt they be stirred with vigor, or at least a semblance of enthusiasm. Only once the lots are thoroughly mingled, lots are M&Ms, I think, in this case. Only once the lots are thoroughly mingled shalt they be offered up all those in the studio, and each shall take it in their turn to plunge their hand into the cauldron and draw from it lots. And then shall the lots be consumed in short order. Thus shall the drawing of the lots continue apace over the intervening days until the lots are but a wistful recollection. So I think,
but there's also I didn't realize it on my first read through, but this actually begins with somebody outside of this giving
from the east,
from the east
specifically. So
this is kind of a costly thing for people who are east of other people.
That's true.
It is.
But aren't we all east
we're
of
all
one
east
another?
of someone.
That's true.
So
if
it's
you just
sort
go
of
far enough.
So this is kind of the pay it forward aspect of Meat Peace
It's
Wheat,
sort of
where-
a gremlin situation.
Yeah, you have a friend from the east who sends you a shitload of M&Ms, and then you throw them into a bucket, and you and all your friends during Meat Peace Ween partake of the M&M bucket, basically. So we're pretty excited about that. We're going to be implementing this tradition next year at Meat Peace Ween.
Yeah, so thanks a bunch.
So thanks a lot, Dwarven Jester. Also in the news, Sam and I are preparing to head off to Uruguay. We're actually recording this episode one day early because we're leaving tomorrow. Interestingly, we're going to be traveling for almost
1,000 years.
Actually, yeah, almost 24 hours. But the first 12 hours of that, we won't even be leaving the United States.
And I've been wondering about I can't figure out the math on this because, there's tons of times where you actually have a cheaper flight if you take more flights, to get
Yeah,
from
if you
point A to
pass
point B.
through a hub for the airline or whatever.
And so in our case, we're flying from the middle of the country to the West Coast first and then to Florida. So we're sort of doing that. We're going as far away as we could and then coming.
We're actually going to the far northwest corner of the United States and then to the far southeast corner of the United States. So we're actually flying a 5-hour flight to go from Washington State down to Florida.
I think I'm going to take it as my opportunity to refer to just the entire country as flyover country. And
Because we are flying over it.
yeah,
That's true.
For the rest of these conversations, be like, yeah, I flew over it once.
Although, unfortunately, you're not flying over the Northeast, which is the main place you need to be able to call flyover.
that's
country.
true. That is true.
Yeah. So
Which is just a bit of revenge because that's how they refer to places that we've always lived.
So we are leaving tomorrow morning to go to Uruguay, but we won't be leaving the United States until tomorrow night.
Correct.
At which point we just have a direct flight straight to Uruguay.
It's only like 7 hours from
Yeah,
Florida.
it's not that bad once you're in Florida.
Which is great.
So let's talk about what do you got to do to prepare for a trip like this?
Well, I think it depends on the person, right? Because some people are haunted by extreme anxiety when it comes to flights. And so they basically have to be tranquilized.
Yeah.
Right?
So you just bring your darts and basically
Just dart it up.
That's all
Yep.
that's all you need.
You have to dart before you get to the airport, though, because security will definitely take those
They'll
away.
take your darts.
Yeah.
It's true. And then you have to somehow
Unless your darts are under 3.2 ounces. Then
Actually, that's true.
it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
And you have to have blunt enough needles, though. So
Yeah, you got to
it's
really
not going to feel
you just
great.
use knitting needles.
you got to really like get them. You got to really get them in there.
Yep.
But yeah, so if you're the sort of person who has a lot of anxiety, then most of travel is oriented around like how to tamp that down and get that under control. Because it is weird if you do pay attention to the fact that you're riding an explosion through the sky. It is a little freaky, right?
Well, I mean, it's a series of small explosions.
Like a car.
Which
engine.
I don't know if
like a
that's
car
better
engine.
or if it's worse, but
Hard to say.
hard to say. So
I think it just bothers me that my seat is a flotation device and not a parachute. I feel like if I'm needing to float, it's already we're well past a scenario
they should
where I
do?
could have gotten out.
they should have like evacuation doors just along all of the rows. And then in the case of an evacuation, kind of like a Pez dispenser, where like you pop the Pez out. If it just shot everyone out laterally from the airplane and there was just parachutes attached to your seats because you're already buckled
Some of those
in.
have to get shut out real far because I was going to get sucked right in the lungs.
No, what they need is
They
they
want to
need
make an omelet.
they need a thing where the plane is actually split down the middle, sort of like a banana split.
So then it breaks in half and then dumps all the people out.
Yeah, it pops apart, and then the seats are on rails, and they just slide out. They just slide out, and now you just pull a cord, and boom, your seat. It's like an ejection seat.
Someone call Boeing. I know they're going through some tough times right now. We got some ideas.
Honestly, if my seat could parachute me, I'd feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I feel
Well, the problem is you have to get out of the airplane, though. I think that's the reason that they don't. Is it just assumes that you're going to die because it's too hard to get everybody off of the plane through,
a single
a single hole.
port.
Yep.
Yep. That's why you cut the plane in half. Boom, right down the middle. Slide everybody out.
Any of you who are flying this week, sorry for the for increasing your anxiety. But yeah, so our approach has generally been, because we don't naturally have a flight anxiety, that is actually great because you're trapped. And what I mean by that is
It's like a sabbatical.
it basically ends up being a sabbatical, because there's no one can talk to you. And like usually if there's someone next to you, you don't want to strike up a conversation with them, especially on like a 7-hour flight.
Oh yeah, don't start a conversation on a 7-hour flight.
You could do it in if I'm going to do it, I usually do it in the last hour, right? So I'm like, there's a time limit now.
I give it about 8 minutes. As we start to land, it's kind of like, so how was
that flight? Huh?
But yeah, so for us, what we do is we basically pack up. It's almost like spending the night in the library, kind of, right? So you pack up
it's a lock-in.
a variety of materials. So I got some books. I got 6 books because we're flying a lot. So I figured I might be able to get through all of them.
We got about 40 hours of reading to pack in.
Yeah, and then I got a few printout images for stuff that I want to kind of practice and do some master studies on, and then. Otherwise, of course, we're just sitting there and we've been making this game. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about, generally speaking. So we use it as this like really intense compounded period where we get to just hang out. It's almost like our quarterly reviews where we're like, all right, we're just hanging out for the whole day.
There is a danger with this, though, which is that every time we have a quarterly review, a whole bunch of big changes get implemented.
It's true.
And this is a 40-hour quarterly review.
Oh,
so
shit.
Try not to get it. Just be careful so that when you come back, all of a sudden you're like, so now the company is a different thing. And also, we're not making scuffle buddies.
Now we make flip-flops.
Now we make
Parachutes for planes.
We're calling it planer shoots.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's fun about all this travel is the security side.
Well, fun is a strong word for it.
So
I think part of it is actually that because ICE in the United States now is apparently just off its hinges.
customs.
Yeah,
The
the customs
immigration and
enforcement.
customs
Yeah,
enforcement.
there is no more ice in the United States because it's all melted.
Yeah.
That's also true. But
We just replaced all of the ICE with ICE
With
agents.
immigration officials.
yeah. So when you come to customs, apparently they've been doing this thing where they'll just take your laptop, you just take it, and then they'll go through your emails or some crazy shit. Which I'm not super into that. I'm not into that by any stretch. I'm an upstanding, patriotic American, and that seems extremely non-American to me and non-patriotic to
It's also,
rifle through some
I mean,
laptops
that's
and
inaccurate.
fucking-
It's quite American right now.
right. Yeah, okay,
it
yeah,
is,
that's
but it's
true.
also a violation of your
Rights.
right to against an unreasonable search and seizure.
Yeah, but that's assuming that you have rights.
which apparently we
turns
don't
out we
anymore.
don't.
So that's frustrating. But yeah, so we basically have to. We've been looking at all of our tech that we're bringing because we want to be able to bring our laptops, right, to be able to work, be able to communicate, and having to get like a burner laptop to go on a trip is really frustrating. So
and we have to have a lot of redundancies. So, for example, having 2-factor authentication, well, if that's tied to your phone, then if you assume that once you get back to your own country, then a government official is going to take your phone and just
Well, I think
smash it with a hammer.
this is the funny thing. I was thinking about this morning because I was getting stuff ready, and Seth had worked up a checklist about all the stuff we need to do. What authentication to put on your stuff, what other services to get. And I was like, this is weird because usually I remember in the past when I've traveled to like Europe and I went to some of the former Soviet Union countries, and a lot of the concern was
Don't
about,
tell anybody that, though.
Yeah, right. A lot of the concerns about like your personal safety, like going there, right?
Now it's just
Now
on
I'm
the
like,
way back.
On the way back, I think that America is going to take my laptop and destroy it.
I mean, I had this experience 5 years ago when I brought a Kindle back. And they were like, "Is this a bomb?" And I was like, "No, it's a Kindle." And
It's
they're
a
like,
fucking
they're like,
Kindle.
"Well, we're gonna need to open it up." And I was like, "Yeah, but you can't because it's sealed." And they're like,
Maybe
"Well,
this
not
is-
anymore." They just took a screwdriver and they just fucking jammed it into the Kindle and ripped the back off and just destroyed it. And I was like, "Are you gonna compensate
That
me
was
for
back
that?"
when Kindles were fairly new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you gonna compensate me for this?" And they're like, "No, we don't compensate for like it's
Destroying
just
personal
part of
property.
security." So I contacted Amazon and I was like, so this happened?" And they sent me an email back and they're like, "Oh yeah, this happens all the time. We'll just send you a new one." I was like, holy shit.
but how crazy is that? I mean, that sounds. So I'm also.
Yeah, I'm
reading-
way more anxious about dealing with our own government on the way
Yeah.
back than literally anything else, including terrorists, which is what apparently this is supposed to be keeping from happening. So
Yeah, I'm
It turns
feeling-
out the terrorists were us the whole time.
the whole
apparently.
time.
So yeah, I'm very excited to get to Uruguay, which is apparently very nice. with good
Nervous
people.
about coming
Nervous
back.
about coming back to America. so that sucks. It's always enlightening to travel, and I think anytime I've done it when going out of the States, it's those things where you notice the discrepancy between your own culture and another one, and you start understanding the weird contours of your own is usually what it is.
Yeah.
So instead of worrying about like the changes that that exist in someone else's culture are not something you're concerned about. It's just something you're like, oh, that's interesting. But then it sort of heightens the fact that maybe you don't do that, or that you guys do that. Back
Yeah,
at
well,
home.
the first instinct is when you see a group of people doing things differently than the way you do it, is you always go, why do you do it like that? Without actually going, wait, why do we do it like this?
Right.
So yeah, my experiences traveling to India were always really interesting in that regard, because it's things like, families live 3 generations in the same household. Even if they don't have to, they still do. They have 800 to 1,000 person weddings. They have it's a very different set of things. And there's all these different rituals and customs and stuff revolving around food and things. And here we just take the nearest burger and just slap it across our face and hope debris gets in, that's kind of how we do it. Right. Yeah, it's all very interesting. So I'm curious to see what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we also have a new phase in Loot Box Watch 2017.
Oh my God, the saga continues.
It's getting worse.
Which is weird. You would have thunk it that it wouldn't.
All
But
right, so up to date now, we've got the Battlefront 2 sort of implosion.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the Destiny 2 thing, which there was an update with the Destiny 2 problem where Activision, or I guess Bungie, got caught lying to players about their XP gains to get loot boxes. So they said, oh yeah, sorry about that. We're going to fix that. So their fix was to undo suppressing players' XP gains and instead just double the amount of experience players needed to get those loot boxes. So players were still mad. I'm not quite sure where that has gone since then. Mm-hmm. And then now we have Ultimate Fighting.
It's the EA's UFC game.
EA
coming out.
They're still in the middle.
Actually, I saw this pop up and I thought it was it's that parody problem, right? Where it's like, what's that, Poe's Law?
Yeah, Poe's Law.
Where what would be the parody of the situation is now just the situation.
Yeah.
So you can't tell if it's real
you
or
read
not.
this article and you're like, somebody made a mobile game a while back called IAP Quest.
Yep.
Where you it's like a regular simple platformer.
I think you have to pay to unlock everything.
You have to pay to unlock the ability to jump and then all this shit. And they made it as a joke, right? But this article, all right, so explain it.
Yeah,
it sounds like this. Almost.
Essentially, what it basically all of the progression is handled through loot boxes. Okay,
just all
of it. And as far as the online play goes, when you're going against other people, so you can go and sign up for a match and go fight someone else. And if you want to, I think the phrase that just blew my mind was that you can unlock if you buy a loot box, you can unlock a rare level 5 golden jab, which is just the same
5-star golden jab,
same move.
So you're punching people. They just make it so you just punch people really weakly. You have a weak punch. But then if you just drop cash on the game, then randomly via the power of gambling, your punch magically becomes super, super strong.
Yeah, but apparently everything is handled like this. So it's not the case that it's
for some reason it feels like an extra layer of egregiousness because
it's a punch.
It's just your arm. Like you're not buying an item. You're not
your arm is just better now.
Yeah, your arm's better. You got a good arm.
Well, in that case, it's
gambling.
In that case, it's literally paying for bigger numbers, right? Which I think that's where the whole box, like the whole facade, comes off of the whole thing.
Yeah.
At least if you're buying like a gun, something new, like a new gun or some new functionality,
it's an object. It feels tangible.
But if they're like, you just punch harder because you paid a few bucks.
You got the good old platinum jab.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in that, just go Google that and read up on that article. Be baffled as we were. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know if it's
the phrase. I can't remember what the phrase exactly was, but just the if you get a 5-star rarity golden jab out of a loot box, then you can just punch people harder. So that's happening. I guess the idea now is to just go as hard as possible on this until every government in the world
cracks down,
just destroys the video game industry. Yeah. So basically it's kind of like looting on the way out during a riot while everything is on fire kind of a situation.
Loot boxing on the way out.
Yeah, so hopefully the rest of us don't get caught in that.
Just change the name of UFC to loot boxing.
Yeah.
Loot boxing.
There you go.
Yes. It's a little truth in advertising.
What it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also sort of on the loot box front, Fortnite has become a really strong competitor to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, if not actually surpassing it. So
It's surpassing on Twitch, I believe, right?
It's kind of bouncing around.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Where PUBG was sort of the top thing on Twitch for a long time. It's kind of gone down, and League of Legends is now back at the top again,
Right.
as you would expect. But Fortnite has reached a point where it's now occasionally surpassing PUBG, or it's kind of like, neck and neck with it. So Fortnite is made by Epic Games, and it was originally supposed to be like a kind of a cartoony, kind of fun, almost WildStar looking tower defense game where you and a bunch of friends got together, you scavenged the area, and you picked up resources and equipment and stuff, and then you built a base that you had to then protect yourself from hordes of zombies and stuff.
Right.
And so the gameplay loop was you'd go out, you'd scavenge, and there'd be a timer where you would know when the next wave of zombies would come, so you'd have time to then get back to the base, quickly craft stuff, build your towers and defenses, defend yourself, and then between the next wave, like the faster you cleared them, the more time you had to go out and get more stuff, right? And so it just escalates. But it kind of got mixed reviews because it kind of felt monotonous, and people felt like once they kind of got the gimmick of it, then there just wasn't a lot left to it. And so they were kind of struggling to figure out like, how do we revive this game? And then PUBG comes out. And so the creators of Fortnite, they were looking at PUBG and they were like, wait a minute, this is just like, we have all the pieces of this. We have like, you can go out into we have these environments that are just the right size. We can support 100 players. We have these like timer systems for handling waves and things like that. We have the ability to go out there and pick up resources and pick up weapons and stuff, which is what you do in PUBG. So they quickly pivoted and they made a battle royale mode. And it's basically a much more polished and refined and balanced version of PUBG. I don't know if it's free yet. Okay. But I think they're intending on making it free, but it's also monetized through loot boxes. So there it is. But I think it's an interesting example of a company that basically saw something that they made something that wasn't working. They looked around and they saw something that people were really into, and they were like, we think we could do that, but even better. And they just did. They just did it. They re-engineered everything.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think they got some guff for it, especially from Bluehole, which is the makers of PUBG themselves. Apparently there's some stuff about Bluehole trying to like,
because they use the Unreal Engine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically Bluehole had been leaning on Epic for an endorsement of support because they pay royalties to Epic. So they were giving Epic a ton of money. And also Epic was helping them fix stuff about the engine that would make this kind of gameplay better.
And Epic also made Fortnite.
Also made the Fortnite, and they own the engine, which means they could then turn around and take all of the lessons learned about this kind of a game from this other company.
And just do it better.
And then just apply it directly, because they basically had insider knowledge of the entire workings of this other game. And they made a direct competitor for it. Right. Which is that's a little whack. I think there's kind of no way around that.
Some would say it's a little rude. Yeah. To say the least.
Yeah, but honestly, I played PUBG, and from what I've seen of Fortnite, I would much rather play something like Fortnite because, for starters, people aren't bleeding everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not even saying they shouldn't have done it. I'm just saying it is still a little whack. Right?
It's definitely whack, and I think the way they got around to it was in an ethical, grayish, dark gray area. But the fact is that I, based on what I've seen of PUBG, and I did play PUBG to try it out, and I found it really disorienting. I was mostly getting shot and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see who was shooting me or where it was coming from. And looking at the sort of the general level of polish and clarity and stuff of something like Fortnite, is the focus is a lot more on just like what you're doing rather than just being shot in the face from somewhere you can't even see.
Right. Yeah.
And so it just seems a lot more accessible.
I also prefer cartoon violence to graphical violence.
Yeah.
So that's
But I think there's an interesting thing here, which is that, you look at this, so there was this big success, and then the underlying design of it is pretty apparent, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, it's not the sort of game, it's not like a deep, it's like a 4X strategy game or something where there's
it's actually a simple game concept.
Yeah, there's so many knobs and levers that you couldn't, even if you try to reverse engineer, it's just going to take a long time. In the case of Battle Royale modes, those are really they're kind of just like
The hard part is the
obvious.
100-person networking.
Exactly.
Once you've got that, then the game is like you pick up weapons and shoot each other.
Well, it's almost equivalent to like Agario or something like that. Those games where you basically eat other players and get bigger. Right.
Yeah.
It's not really actually that much
It's
different.
Agario, the FPS.
Basically, yeah. And so when it comes to, a bigger company, say, spotting this thing, and this is something we hear a lot with devs who approach us and they're like, hey, I have an idea, but like, I want to tell you to talk about it, but I don't want you to like take it and go do something. First of all, we're like not interested in your ideas, but generally speaking, like when it comes to like reverse engineering an idea or someone sort of taking it, there's a problem when it comes to the simplicity of the game and the success of the game versus the complexity of the game. So in our case with Crashlands, for example, that game took a very long time to make, and there's enough stuff going on under the hood that people can't just like, you can't just look at it and rebuild it.
As far as we know, there aren't any clones out there.
Correct.
Except for literal direct clones where somebody just took the
APK and re-uploaded it.
Right. Places.
And so what you end up seeing happening with some of these game modes that kind of pop up is it's kind of like when everybody put zombies in their games. Like, so Left 4 Dead got huge, right? Mm-hmm. And then Call of Duty put in some zombies.
And there was DayZ, and then there was something with another Z, and then there was Z something or other.
And a lot of the mechanics are actually the same, which is shoot stuff in the face and then sort of set dressing slightly different.
Then there's the survival ones.
Yeah.
Because then there was a wave of those over like a 2-year period where it was just
after Rust,
survival game after survival game after survival game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And some of those are really hard to make, and some of them are not as hard to make on the design side. But there's an interesting parallel here between the games industry and sort of, I think, just the general startup industry, actually, which is if you look at companies that essentially build something that gains a huge amount of followers, say Instagram or Snapchat or something like that, and then you look at the giants in the room, Facebook, Amazon, Google, they often offer to buy the tech. So they'll say, hey, Snapchat, for example, will buy you. And if Snapchat says no, then they just look at the design because it's not complicated and they just build it in-house rapidly, right? Yep. So, Facebook has Instagram.
Things just consolidate.
Yeah.
So like Amazon owns Twitch, which owns Curse, for example. Right. So Amazon now owns Curse.
Right. But the crazy thing is if it were the case, for example, that, some new live streaming site came up and they're doing something that was just interesting in a particular way, but not particularly complex, then Twitch might offer to buy them. And then if they say no, they might be like, okay. And then they'll just build it themselves very rapidly because you can just see exactly what it is. And so there's this sort of push and pull then with, like if your game gets huge, like PUBG did, like a huge success, like an unbelievable amount of success compared to the amount of resources that went into that thing. But the design is really simple and really obvious. And so you're going to have at that point, you're going to have people hopping into
high
cloning.
level design, not
high level design.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the execution is going to be hard as fuck because it's a game and it's always hard to do it. But conceptually, there's nothing baffling.
Correct.
That's happening.
A lot of it's weird.
So who's going to buy Discord?
I don't know.
Hopefully nobody.
Hopefully nobody.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. Speaking of people giving out game ideas, we have a question about this. These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. They're asked by our listeners there. So if you'd like to get your question on a future episode, head on over there, put some stuff in the text box, and then give the submit button a slap in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
First question comes from Peanut Enut, who says, I want to make a game, but I don't have any ideas. Do you have any non-game jam tips? So this is the person
to bring your ideas to.
This is the one person who everybody in the world is looking for, because here's how you get game ideas. You approach any stranger in the world and you say, hey, I make video games.
They will give you an idea.
You can stop talking at that point.
Because the first thing they're going to say is, listen, I have a game idea that you should make, and then you're going to owe me like 50% of the royalties. Because as we all know, that's exactly how business works.
Right.
So
just introduce yourself to people as a video game developer.
Introduce yourself to people as a video game developer, and they will tell you what games you're supposed to make. Yep, that's how it works.
But otherwise, I know you said you don't want game jams, right? Is that in there?
No, non-game jam tips.
Why?
I don't know what that. Yeah, do a game jam. That's actually the best way to do it.
It'll take 2 days, and you'll have a great idea.
Yeah, actually, the game that we're currently working on, Scuffle Buddies, it came out of a game jam idea.
And if you go to the Bscotch Discord, there's a bunch of people from the Shenana Jam still in there, still working on games that they made sometimes from the Shenana Jam.
Yeah.
So
you don't need an idea; you just need a starting point.
Yep.
So get a theme, just like use a random word generator. Just look around your office
Or, you know,
just grab an item.
one of my most fun ones, if you just think about an experience that you had that day and then try to think about how you would turn it into a game. Something as simple as like ordering a sandwich at the sub shop. You can game that in many different directions.
You just have to understand the fundamental concepts of what makes games fun, which is things like loops, a little bit of like randomness and surprises, a sense of progression and goals.
And sometimes you don't need any of that if your game is gimmicky enough.
That's true.
Like,
That's true.
like Surgeon Simulator,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's fun. It's
So
just
you
a
can
fun
make-
interaction.
It's just a fun interaction. You can make a Surgeon Simulator where like you're driving to work, but you have to be multitasking. So you have to pick up your phone and do stuff on it. You have to.
And try not to crash.
Yeah,
Oh
there you go.
shit! Yeah, texting while driving simulator. You got to send and read as many texts as possible
While driving.
while just driving down the interstate.
Yeah.
That'd be super easy to build. And then the crazy thing about it, I mean, you could have so many fun things because the text could be ridiculous, right? So if it's ridiculous text coming in, you could have to try to type on the touchscreen through the computer interface.
Yeah, and of course, the game would rate your texts that you sent for how comprehensible they are. Just do a quick grammar check on them. You know,
Well, have you seen? I mean, so the whole idea of a game. So there's have you seen the Desert Bus charity event every year?
Desert Bus.
It's called Desert Bus. So the game is literally you leave a bus station and it's a 10-hour drive to get to another bus station. It's like there's two cities. I can't remember which ones they are, but in the Southwest.
Wait, this is happening in real life?
No,
People
but
get on a bus?
no. You like in the whole charity event is played in this game.
Oh.
And you just drive in the game from one city to the next, and you're just driving a bus.
yeah, but it's
not-
like in real time, right? It's like
Yeah, it takes you 10 hours to get from A to B.
Okay.
Nothing's happening. You're just driving the fucking bus. Literally
well, I
nothing
mean,
happens.
have you guys? There's like truck simulator.
But I mean, those games are actually
Steam.
awesome, though. If you look at like all the gameplay and stuff going
There's
on.
like management stuff.
I mean, this is literally
You're just
you're
driving.
driving a bus in a straight line. Like it's a straight road for 10 hours.
is it modeled after? Are you like seeing scenery and stuff? Or
No, you're in a fucking desert.
It's a desert, so it's randomly generated like a cactus here and there, maybe a rock.
So they
So,
do
how
this,
does, so now where does the charity part come
they
from?
just do this stream every year where people sign up to play Desert Bus for a year and they raise money.
Why did they choose the most boring game?
I think that's the
How
point.
is this
Like-
different though than like running a 5K for charity?
Yeah,
I mean
it's
that's
the same
boring
thing,
as
yeah.
fuck.
so do people pay you for how long you drive the bus?
I think they do that. They do all sorts of stuff like that. And so I think they've now like there's some mileage thing. I saw there's some metric that they hit some big milestone, which is some obscene either number of hours or number of miles, quote unquote, that the community is driven on this desert bus. So my point here with this is that
Do you need to stop for gas, or do you just keep
I think you
driving?
just drive the whole time. I think there's literally no mechanical.
There's nothing you
things
have to do. You just drive.
Yeah. So as far as this question of like what having some ideas for games, literally anything.
As long as you just do a good job of it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Don't do a bad job.
You can make
and
a
then instead
game
do a good job.
out of trying to install Windows updates on your computer. I did that the other day.
I've been warned, but Windows keeps on. It's been telling me for 2 weeks now. It's like, hey, we got an update for you.
It
Please.
just did it yesterday morning.
Yeah, I've refused to
destroyed
turn
my
my
morning plan because of it.
And then it's like, don't turn it off because we're updating right now.
And then it turns back on. It's like, we've got an update for you. And I'm like, I fucking know.
just-
Because you took 3 hours to put it together. And I've been waiting.
Yeah, they do that fun thing now where when you turn your computer on, it's like, hello. It always says that on the screen, and then it's
Yeah.
like, we got some fun new toys for you.
The thing I want to
We're
scream
Internet
at it-
Explorer is now your default browser. Again.
It's like, no.
The thing I want to scream at it every time is just like, you're not a Mac.
Stop it.
Just quit acting like it.
Yeah.
Just be okay with that. You do you.
Yeah, your Windows. What you should do is say, here's the patch notes for this patch.
Scroll.
And it should just be just a huge fucking text file that's as technical as possible. And then I can hit I accept
Yep.
at the bottom.
Yeah, I accept this patch. But even the blue screen now is a sad face.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be like a crash, like a memory dump message. So you could like kind of, you look at it and you'd say something very technical is going on right now. I'm sure none of us knew what that even meant, but
Now
it
they're
felt
just
like
something went wrong. Smiley face. And you're like, what?
Stop it.
just,
So you're not a person. You're a machine. Be a machine.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Embrace your truth. All right. Next question comes from Quantum Anomaly. The Konami code, Game Genie, Power Overwhelming, some cheat codes have become legendary in gaming society, but have recently been replaced with console commands or external editors. What are your thoughts on cheats?
It took me a while to parse the first part of that sentence.
There's a lot of.
I heard
words.
Konami code and I was like, I know what that is. And I was
That's like
I was
that
thinking about it.
up, down,
Yeah,
A, B,
yeah.
left,
Yeah, so
right.
But I was trying to
everybody
remember
in-
it while you then listed things I've never heard of.
Well, so to fill everybody in, because we actually have, there's a whole generation of probably listeners that don't even know what a cheat code is in some regard.
Yeah.
Because you don't
Developers
have them
back
anymore.
back before we had internet patches.
and the internet kind of just at all, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, developers would create secret commands that you could put into a game, like the Konami code, which I think is like up, down,
left, right.
A, B, left,
Yeah.
right, left, A, B, select something.
Which on some websites, if you do that, then a raptor will fly across the screen while screaming.
yeah.
That
If you enter that code,
but like
combo.
exactly that will happen on multiple
No
different
matter
websites.
what the website is.
Yeah.
What is it? Is there a
there's a
relationship between the raptor and the Konami
Wait, when you
code?
say a
someone
raptor,
just-
do you mean like a modern raptor, like a
like a
bird of
bird-
prey, or
No,
like
I mean
a
like
velociraptor?
a velociraptor
Okay.
pops up from the right and just screams across to the
So
left.
do I have to do this?
I think
on our
you
new
probably
website?
must.
Okay.
Right.
So I love the shit out of cheat codes for single player experiences.
Yeah.
Because it gives you the option to, it's basically a variable difficulty curve, right? So going into StarCraft and you type power overwhelming, and now all your units are invincible. So if you're like, I just want to see the cutscenes.
Right.
Like I've been struggling against this one level for a long time, and I just suck and
I just
I'm
need
bad.
to beat it now.
Yeah. I don't really want to spend another 35 hours learning how to do this.
Which one was Black Sheep?
Black Sheep Wall was I think was a Warcraft 3 Infinite Gold, I think. Something like that. Yeah, so a lot of these games, they just had text inputs. You just type in some code or whatever, and then boom, you have God mode, you have infinite money, you have whatever vehicles you want.
Even in Fallout, I use I increase my max carrying capacity
Yep.
because
Because it's annoying as fuck.
it's so
Yeah.
fucking annoying.
Now, speaking of cheating and speaking of Fortnite,
yeah, how much has this game been ruined by cheaters?
well, Epic
yeah.
is actually suing people for cheating.
good.
It's a new thing. Yeah.
Because interestingly, if you cheat in Fortnite, you're actually ruining the game experience for 99 other people,
Yep.
which
Real bad move.
yeah. And so of course the one that so Epic is suing like 8 people right now for using cheats that just give them like infinite health and infinite ammo or whatever. So they just go on like a Rambo style rampage through the game and just murder everybody and win every time. Which literally, so it's interesting because it seems like, oh, what's the big deal? I'm just having
just a game.
fun. But you're now ruining a product that a company has invested millions of dollars into making.
And,
Right?
that the 99 other people playing have invested their money and time.
Yeah. So if each person buys the game for $60, then you're talking there's $6,000 worth of players in like of product in there that you just ruined, right? And so the one that's in the news is there was some 14-year-old kid who did this and is getting sued.
Right.
And so now there's like a big legal battle because this is a minor who can't actually accept the terms of use legally for the game.
Ooh, interesting. This might change how terms of use are held.
Yeah,
then.
because
Weird can happen.
games have this weird gray area where any online stuff you have to be 13 years or older.
Or just the entire internet has this.
Where you have to be
area.
13 years or older to accept or to sign up for any
Well,
account.
it's actually because if you're younger than 13, then COPPA applies, and so COPPA is the legal thingy that basically says we as people providing services
Are not
not
collecting.
allowed to collect personal information about people younger than 13.
Right. But if you're under the age of 18, then
You can't sign anything.
You cannot sign any legally binding agreements without the consent of a guardian.
Right.
Which
So
is
then-
what
so then
which is what
between-
terms of use are.
Right. So then between like 13 and 18, which is an enormous fraction of a player base for any game, people are agreeing to terms and they're technically not legally able to,
Right.
Yeah.
which is really weird.
So for example, there can't be like a pirate under the age of 18 because they can't agree that they won't redistribute the game. They also can't agree that they are allowed to have the game in the first place.
Are you saying we should start a criminal syndicate of minors who are all above the law?
Well, I mean, they are above the law,
Or
right?
are they below it?
Or below it. They're somewhere.
too short to ride the law.
They're law adjacent.
The other thing is basically the terms of use thing is basically a sham for this exact reason, which is that people
don't
can
read
just
them
say
anyways.
they agree to it, right? But if they're actually unable to agree to it because they're in a country where it doesn't apply or because they're a minor, then what does it mean if they say yes but can't actually agree, right? What can you do now as the service provider? Like on the one hand, are you now liable for the shit that they do because they agreed to your terms but they can't, right?
Right.
And you can't stop them from doing that. So what?
Well, and what's the alternative? Would it be like you can only accept people over the age of 18 or 18 or older?
But even still, you just
Who
say
then?
you're
Well,
18.
that's like who would have to send in some kind of identity verification. Like they'd have to scan their driver's license or something just to like make a Facebook account or sign up to play a video game.
Yep. It's one of the places where just kind of the way that we want to do stuff legally is just incompatible with how
the internet
thing
works,
actually works,
and how the world works.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what this is all going to turn into, but I've been wondering ever since I first started learning about terms of use when we needed one for our own, Butterscotch ID and stuff. And I was putting this thing together, and I was like researching COPPA and doing all this, and I was like, none of this makes any sense.
Yeah,
just it doesn't make any sense. 'Cause we've had people who were 12 or so, just like tell us at some point they'd be suddenly in our forums, which they're technically not allowed to be, and they even agreed that they wouldn't.
And we're
come
like,
into.
you can't be here. We have to shut your account down.
Yeah, like now
because you lied. Like you checked the box saying.
Yeah, but of course, there's an untold number of other people in there who are also just kids under the age of 13
who are also lying,
who just aren't telling us that they're lying.
And we
about
can't enforce it.
Yeah.
Unless they just say it, they're like, oh, we have to ban you now.
Which means
for a year, I
and,
guess.
Right. We and every other service provider using the internet actually do have an enormous base of users on whom we're collecting private information that are technically under the age that we're allowed to collect private
But we don't know that.
We don't know that.
it.
And also
that's
we make
basically
it
where the gray area comes in. Because it's like, as long as you don't know
No, because but we don't know that part. But then we've also made everybody agree
that they are.
in this next bracket up to age 18
from 13 to 18.
Yeah, that they're not going to like hack our services, that they're not going to do all these
But
things.
they can't agree to that.
Yeah, but part of the agreement that basically just
because
says,
they can't sign contracts.
Right. But part of the agreement actually says if you cannot agree to this for legal reasons, then you may not use our services, right? That just says it. But if they can't agree for legal reasons, can't they just use it anyway? Like how does
Yeah, well, this reminds me of how, for example, if you sign a contract for a business, there's always a section in there, which is your warranties section, which says, as a signer of this contract, I guarantee that I am legally authorized to sign it.
Yeah.
Right.
but what happens if you're not and then you sign it anyway?
Right. It's like a paradox.
Yeah.
There's no.
I think it just invalidates the contract once somebody finds out, I guess is how that.
Yeah.
Right.
But you could still sign it, and then the person on the other end of it doesn't know that you lied, and then you can start doing business, and then
Now what?
Yeah. So the law is dumb and weird, and it doesn't work with the internet.
Yes, which is now what we're seeing.
Or all kinds of things, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is now what we're seeing with this. This Fortnite case in particular. It's going to get real weird because what does that even mean to sue a minor? I think they're suing him for like $150,000 or something. That's what the
Now
damage
that's
is.
excessive.
That's over the top.
This
Well, I mean,
this
that's
is
what
like
they always
record
start.
company shit.
Yeah, they always start there, right? And then it goes down to like nothing. But
I think it's
Well,
actually
if you consider all the loot boxes that they could have sold to those other 99 people,
that's true.
and if this kid played like 20 games,
Yeah.
then that's 2,000 people whose games he's ruined. And how many loot boxes is that? That's.
But I think it's actually much scarier if you because I think this is why this is how the RIAA fucked up, and also now how Epic may be potentially fucking up. Is that you don't go after like kids and parents.
Well, they don't know those.
For $1 million settlements.
Right.
Yeah. But the problem is they start at like $1 million or $100,000 or whatever. And they target a small population of people. But if they just target everybody, but hit a less insane mark like $5,000, that's actually far scarier because that feels real now. You know? It feels real because when it's like $1 million, like I can't possibly pay that. There's no way. There's no universe.
It's an incomprehensible
It's
punishment.
just a big number.
So you're saying if there's basically like a cheating tax,
Yeah, if there was just a cheating tax.
pay $500, you cheat all you want. We're just gonna take $500 from you.
Well, no, but then you also can't play the game.
Well,
anymore.
so the
Also,
it's got to be both.
the mother in this case said that she's going to try to find a way to redirect the lawsuit to the company that made the cheating software.
Yeah, it should go to both.
Yeah. But this is interesting too, because kind of reminds me of say like those WoW private servers, which Blizzard goes after.
Yep.
But those are companies.
Right.
And so Blizzard can say, you owe us $50 million for the damages you've done. And if the court says, yep, that's what you got to do, then those companies can just go, oh, dang it. Ooh, we're bankrupt now. Yep. And then they don't. That's it.
That's it.
The company just closes and now it ceases to be a legal
then
entity.
they start another company and just reboot it.
Yeah, but a person has a much harder time with that because a person can't just delete all of their legal sort of, background and just restart.
You can't
like
go bankrupt and then restart in the way that you restart without having that bankruptcy on you. Which is the difference. Because the company can go bankrupt and it just disappears and then you just start a new one.
Yeah. Well, or it could just keep going and then lenders are like, oh, dang it. We'll just give you money anyways because
you're a company.
Yeah. So this is tricky.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Actually, it also kind of makes me think of like underage drinking in the U.S. because parents are liable for their kids if they like drink in their house or something underage, or like other people's kids come to your house.
True.
Right. Parents are liable, and that actually makes sense. Like somebody needs to be right, and kids can't. So this is actually one of the
the law can't just go, this doesn't apply to you.
Yeah,
so I
guess it's not illegal anymore. Yeah. So in order for us to have legal rules, like somebody has to be responsible. And I think it still makes sense in this context that if your kids are doing illegal shit and can't be held responsible for it, then
you got to foot the bill.
Well, you're the guardian.
Right? Yeah.
You're the responsible party.
It like obviously really sucks to be that parent and not even know that your kid's doing that shit and have that happen. But
this is why parents, you got to talk to your kids.
So you got to talk to your kids
about cheating in video games. And you got to sit down. You got to have the talk about pirating music, cheating in video games, and drugs.
But it was the case with
the trifecta of teenage rebellion.
Yeah, but it was the case with music piracy back when the RIA was suing everybody for huge amounts of money. That was the thing that was one of the things that like put me away from it forever, because I was looking at that and I was like, oh yeah, this actually just has to be how it is. The sums were outrageous and the way they did it was horrible, obviously, but the general principle, like that has to be how it is. And so anytime, it was also the same way I felt about underage drinking, which is always why I put those two things together, is like I didn't do it. Not even because I thought it was bad or because Dare told me not to, but because I didn't want my parents to go to jail.
Right.
It was pretty fucking
You understood
strong
the direction of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Where it goes is that things don't fall on you.
Yeah, but now you create this imbalance of power where you might have like a teenager who's a total dick, who's like, I do want my parents to go to jail.
Yeah, but I imagine there are some scenarios where you can still like get.
You'd be like, no, it's definitely that little bastard's fault.
Yeah. Not legally, but just sort of ethically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also, kids can get into legal trouble too. It's just a different kind of legal trouble.
Yeah.
So,
with reduced sentences or whatever it is.
Which again, like, is very reasonable because the kids are dumb as rocks. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand that actions have consequences.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that before the age of 25, most of what you do.
Yeah, when I say kids, I mean anybody under 25.
Yeah, because like most of what you do pre-25 should be somehow deletable from your
history.
Yeah.
You should still have consequences, but they should be more short term.
Right.
Yeah,
including taking on debt for college, etc.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of this tax code that just happened,
it's not done yet. It's got to go back.
Well, they did shove a bunch of notes into it in the margins.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not going to get into it. I'm aggravated.
Yeah. We don't need to go down that road as much as we would probably like to. All right. Next question comes from Gafferman. Miyazaki is known for designing creatures that at face value are grotesque, but have an elegance and or deep sadness about them, which begs the question, what is the Butterscotch philosophy when designing creatures? So Sam.
Sure. Yeah. So
you and Tifa now are the...
Yeah, so Tifa's been doing a lot of the design for creatures in this upcoming game. It does have creatures.
Oh shit! Spoiler
alert!
Spoiler!
And a lot of it's been sort of the two of us working together to essentially work through this question, because this isn't something we had to answer before, right? We'll have to put into words what it means to make a creature. Because I just do things. So now I've had to sort of convert that understanding on and pass it on in a way, which has been really interesting, really cool. But one of the biggest learnings from it is that all of my designs are always mechanically oriented or design oriented. So what that means is they exist to serve a particular gameplay purpose.
Yeah.
Period. And when it comes to what the end all be all form of the thing is, it's all just completely driven out of that one singular focus. So the example we always give is the Wampet from Crashlands, which we needed a creature that could just stomp on, or basically that did AoE damage.
It needed a really basic AoE attack. It also needed to...
That's area of effect.
Yeah. It needed to not look threatening. And it needed to look like it fit in that particular sort of environment that we.
So those are my 3 triangulation points. And I just went and made.
So like we know it lives in the plains.
One-legged hippo thing that jumps on people.
Yeah.
And as far as what happens with the overall tone, I think it's actually just a result of the style, which is we refer to it internally as sort of a combination of grotesque and cute. We're somehow in the middle ground. Groot, grotesque, cute. Cutesque. Yeah, we're in some sort of middle ground area there because what's essentially happening is we have cartoonish proportions and coloring, but then almost a realistic level of detail happening. So there's like wrinkles.
Wrinkles and shadows.
A lot of texture work and that sort of thing. All done with line, right? And so it stands out very, very thoroughly. So I think the overall theme for us is actually it's all mechanically and design driven. And then beyond that, the style sort of says that it becomes this sort of grotesque cute thing, or this cutesque thing. And it's been really interesting because Tifa's got a very different sort of natural style than I do because she grew up drawing forever. And so she has everyone sort of, if you grow up drawing or you have been drawing for a long period of time, you sort of have your own way of communicating your visual ideas. And hers tends to be very whimsical. And so like lots of really long formed bodies and stretchy things, which actually just don't work very well in this particular 2D gameplay sense that we're trying to do.
Yeah, having things be really compact. Basically, it's sort of like the physics joke about like a spherical cow in a vacuum, right? Like the more sort of compact and spherical something is, the easier it is to calculate collisions and hitboxes and stuff. Exactly. And as soon as something has like a weird long arm poking off, 200 pixels to the side, then there's always a question of, am I banging into this thing? Or do I just walk through the arm?
Does it count as we hit?
Yeah, what's happening here?
And so what's been really interesting for her and I working together is sort of her skilling up on the technical expertise to know what the outcomes of certain designs are. So for example, like if you want to put a tentacle on something, the reason we actually don't put tentacles on things that aren't like arms, essentially.
Because tentacles need to whip around.
If they don't wiggle, then it just looks like a
rod.
Like a lumpy rod.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And animating tentacles is
too many pieces.
Yeah, too many pieces.
That becomes one of those things where until we figure out how to do that on an engine side, like on a whole nother sort of animation side, we sort of shy away from that. And so a lot of the designs then,
or I should say we know how to do it, but it's an optimization problem, right?
And so a lot of the designs then end up being they're not as whack as we would like them to be because they have to be simplified, right? In order to actually work in a game engine context. And so it's been really interesting because this game does have these creatures, these monsters in it. And so we've been looking at, tons of examples from other games, and it's really fun. It's funny looking at games where they didn't have, say, like an animation component involved. So if you look at like a trading card game, for example, where they have like just the crazy drawings, the crazy paintings on the thing, they don't have to worry about that thing animating in any regard.
They just animate the card.
Yeah, they'll just like make it shiny or whatever. Like in Hearthstone.
In Hearthstone, the card literally just pops up off the board and then it slams into the other card and then it goes back.
So what that means is that visually they have 100% freedom to just do whatever they want because that thing does not have to obey any. It's purely an image. Yep. It's not an animation as well.
And actually, in a lot of cases, I think in Hearthstone they used a lot of fan art, which they then they commissioned from people who are doing lots of really fantastic fan art, and they just like paid them to use their art,
right? Which is awesome.
So now they don't even have to do that. They don't even have to make it.
Yeah, so you just make the housing, and
and now you just take the art.
Yeah, and so basically, the more technical the game requirements are, then the more constricted the style has to be in a whole variety of dimensions.
And it is true in 3D.
Yep.
Also, so I mean, if you we were watching that thing that Blizzard put out showing the development of Overwatch.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen this, BlizzCon, they did like a 15-minute piece by piece showing Overwatch as it was being made, which they never do. So it's really kind of fun to see the fact that they just had Tracer and a bunch of gray boxes for like a year.
For a long time.
Yeah, that first year they have all these engineers building the physics systems, building the lighting systems, and then what you start to see is they start to merge those systems in and actually start to use them, where the game goes from being mostly just gray boxes and one model to all of a sudden just rapidly starts to take shape, which is pretty cool to see.
What were you going to say about that, Adam?
Yeah, so they had that the character who sends off the spiraling dragons.
Yeah.
So they had a little moment there where they were talking about this because originally they just had this dragon that went up and down. It was a single dragon. Yeah. That went up and down, sort of, through the floor and back up. And then they realized they're like, how the fuck are we going to have this hit people? And how are people going to know if they're getting hit? Because it's calculating
and wiggly.
It's a sine wave, and it would be too difficult both to on the engineering side to actually make the hitbox work for that, and for the players to understand why they were getting hit. And
Right. So like I'm standing to the left of it and it's sort of like swirling. Am I
right?
hit?
Yeah. Are you
Am I
hit or
in the
not?
path?
I feel like it's coming at me, but then it kind of like wiggles up and around, and it kind of goes around me.
And so then they made it two dragons that are swirling around each other, basically making
Like a
now
helix.
cylinder. Yeah, they're making it. They're a helix, and so they create a cylinder that kind of shoots forward instead. Because now all of a sudden it can be a cylinder, so that's easy to model.
My favorite thing though is the way they did it for prototyping, which they referred to it as the Hunger Caterpillar.
Oh right, yeah.
Or the Angry Caterpillar,
just made a
because
bunch of
it was a
spheres.
bunch of spheres that were just locked out. Like right next to each other, so it just looked like, and they put googly eyes. One of the engineers put googly eyes on it because now it's a caterpillar, and so they had this caterpillar that would just fly through the walls and murder people.
Yep.
And that's the sort of thing where like so if you start out with this original idea, for example, like this guy shoots out this dragon spirit, super cool. Not as simple as that when you actually put it into gameplay terms, right? You have to figure out, okay, given
Well, and you
collision mass
don't
work-
want just like a straight as a rod, like perfectly static dragon just like
Right.
floating out.
Yeah.
Like having it swirl around like that looks cool
rad,
as hell. But yeah, then you run into the hit.
So I think that's the interesting thing with even looking at Miyazaki's work, because I watched plenty of the movies and they're all super fun. But if I was thinking about trying to put one of those into one of our games, it would not work.
Yeah.
On a gameplay level, or on a mechanical level. And so that's a lot of the
It would all
interesting-
be an enormous amount of just custom.
Right.
Just everything would be custom.
tons of custom tooling for it. And this is something that we occasionally do invest that amount of resources into particular things like bosses, right? Sometimes have more weird shapes or kind of get blown out. But when it comes to like all the base level content in the game, we just don't have the mechanical, like the CPU usage would just be too high for most of the stuff.
Yeah, and the dev cost is too high because everything has to be so hand tailored.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's always the consideration is literally any of these things are possible to program.
Yeah, we can do them.
It's just all of a sudden we cut out mobile and anybody without two GPUs on their rig, on their gaming rig.
You have to describe your computer with the word rig now to play it.
Yeah,
right.
If you don't have a rig, if you just have a computer, then you can't play it anymore because we wanted to have two dragons.
Right. So I guess the best answer is the creatures are Qtesque and are built to spec.
Yeah, they're built to make it as easy as possible to implement stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's get to one final question, which comes from Alan Falcon. Do you guys have any interest in Refurium for finding new fans for your games, or would you prefer to wait for such a system to be proven by others first? What are your thoughts on cryptocurrency in general?
All right.
We had to look this
That
up.
is two separate questions.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk about cryptocurrency generally. first. Get
cryptocurrency
that out of
in
the way.
general, it's fine. I think it's neat. It's still currently useless as a medium of exchange. I don't consider it cryptocurrency. I consider it more like a crypto investment.
Crypto
Yeah.
stock.
I think it's going to stay fairly useless as a medium of exchange.
Much like a stock, you still can't reliably use cryptocurrency, even Bitcoin, which is the most popular one, to go and you couldn't go buy a cup of coffee with it. Mm-hmm. And then the bigger question is,
you can in some places, but that wouldn't be a wise move.
but importantly, knowing that, for example, if you buy a share of stock in a company and it was worth $3, you still wouldn't want to go buy a cup of coffee with it because its value goes up by 7% per year. Mm-hmm. Whereas the value of money goes down every year.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of inflation is to push you to spend shit, right? And so when you have something that's value goes up or down by 20% day by day, and then potentially goes up by 7,000% in a year, or maybe it goes down by 7,000, whatever.
That's not money.
That's not money. It's just not. It's not reliable.
Crypto
enough.
stock is a better term.
You're
I think.
way better off just using chickens or just some other thing.
Yeah.
Something you could barter with live.
And it's the same.
you
It's
know?
the same reason why you don't see people carrying around a bar of gold, and then when they want to buy something,
shaving off.
They have their little gold shaver and they shave a flake off to get their hot dog or whatever.
Yep.
It's inconvenient.
Though imagining a
Value
world
is-
where that was the case would be awesome.
I mean, that used to be the world.
Oh man.
I don't think I would want.
And there's a lot of people like to talk about how it's going to revolutionize things, and I think I don't know if that's true, because the fact is
It's going to create. I think what it does is it creates an investment vehicle that is very hard for governments to regulate.
which
what it does.
I can get behind.
Yeah, I have nothing against that. I think that's fine. But as a means of exchange and as sort of like the solution to all of our internet and game problems, it's hard to imagine how that's.
Well, so let's talk about what the actual important thing about cryptocurrency is, which is the fact that it uses blockchain
Yeah,
and what that means.
But so blockchain, as far as we understand it, is essentially a way to create digital uniqueness.
So in other words, it's basically like being able to have actual physical goods in the digital space.
Yeah.
Seth can't just duplicate a cantaloupe that I have.
Right.
And
if he gives you one, he doesn't still have the thing he just gave you.
Right.
It's guaranteed because it's the universe.
Yeah, which when it comes to digital goods, that's a hard thing to pull off because digital cantaloupes are a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, they're a dime per bajillion because you can just copy
free.
them, right?
Yep.
But if you can guarantee that each digital cantaloupe is completely unique, then you can actually use this now.
You could have a cantaloupe farm.
Yeah.
And actually make money off it.
Yeah.
Selling
So
digital
this
cantaloupes.
is the technology that it allows you to create digital scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so Bitcoin by itself is completely worthless except for the fact that it's scarce.
Right.
And scarcity is what creates value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what I think is hilarious is this technology has been around since like 2008 or 9 or whatever, since the Bitcoin first appeared, and nobody gave a shit except for the small segment of blockchain enthusiasts. Oh, actually Bitcoin enthusiasts, right? But they were mostly interested in Bitcoin, not necessarily blockchain. And now this year, Bitcoin has surged. And so starting a few months ago, you started to see just infinite startups building their business around blockchain because now that Bitcoin is worth a lot, all these investors who are looking for startups to fund, they'll just jump at anybody who uses the word blockchain in their business model.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we have already seen this a bunch already. We're not going to name names. We have seen some other companies where they're doing things that are vaguely tied to blockchain.
But they're not actually solving a problem.
Not like solving a new problem, but they're
problem
just say using blockchain to solve the problem. And that is what gets them their investment capital. So
and this isn't to knock blockchain as a technology because
it is
a technology
really
again. It does two very useful things that we just described, and I think there are places where that's going to be hugely useful potentially.
Well, so one of the ideas that was written about was this idea of being able to. So all of us have been buying video games online now, right, digitally.
Yeah.
But one of the weird things that's happened is that there's been like you can't actually just resell your games anymore. So what a lot of people do is you go buy Final Fantasy X or something, you play through it. Maybe you have it on the shelf for a while, and then like a year or two later, you take it to the store, you go cash it in for like $20 or something, buy another game. You can't do that with your digital goods.
Yeah, but I also don't think necessarily that that's the world we should end up in.
Maybe not.
Because the reason you could do this is because you had a physical good in your possession, and so your license, because the license agreement you had then at that time was basically saying you have the right to have this physical good, right? And you could presumably transfer that, right? I guess I don't actually know what the agreements were like. But for digital goods, you don't sell the game. And there's like the solution that we've come up with, for digital goods is to not sell the digital goods. That's why we sell a license. That's why we sell a license.
We sell the right to
use
to run that digital good.
Because it just doesn't make any sense because it's not a physical item. Right. So I don't think actually going back to the days where we had physical items is necessarily the right solution.
Well, my whole point though is that there is a company that's working on using blockchain, being able to actually resell your digital stuff, right? Because you would be able to create uniqueness in that case. Right. So as an example of someone trying to use it in that capacity. But when it comes to this idea of referrium, so we looked this up.
It's a company. All right,
let's just go.
All right. So we went through Referrium's website and all their pitch and everything, trying to figure out like what.
It didn't help that much.
It was actually I think this is telling because like we make games. I don't think we're total dumbos.
You know what blockchain does.
We also own some Bitcoin.
We own. Well, I mean, maybe.
Well, some tiny.
Don't tell our banks that because they'll close our accounts. But so like we're sort of up with tech. Yeah, we know
we're in the crowd.
We know how bits and bytes go. And we watched this pitch for Referrium. And the whole time we're just like,
but what does it do?
But what
and why?
So as far as I understand, the pitch to game developers is, hey, it's expensive to get new users. User acquisition is hard, right? So imagine if there was a system where you could rely on players to promote your game instead of paying advertisers. And so it makes it much cheaper for you.
And then basically what you do with what blockchain is basically doing in this context is making it so that you can track referrals.
Right. And then, so then players become these sort of word of mouth evangelists, and they tell people about your game through this referendum system.
And they get paid for it.
And then they get paid in
cryptocurrency,
which, as we discussed, you can't do anything with except later on at some point redeem it for.
And referendum is the cryptocurrency in this context.
Yeah. Which you can then swap, I guess, or exchange it for some other cryptocurrency.
Well, that was the part that I didn't get, because I was talking about how you'd have to, because you would need some exchange to basically convert, physical money, I guess, whatever, dollars into referendum.
Well, so basically somebody has to be willing to buy your referendum.
Right. But the thing is, that's part that was unclear, is if referendum is backed by a cryptocurrency, because in that case, then it's not money anymore. Like we talked about.
It's a stock.
It's because the value is too volatile.
Yeah.
But so the question is, what is it backed by? If it's backed by that, then this is an insane idea and doesn't make any sense. But if it's backed by this company where they basically just decide how much it's worth and people can buy referendum, for example, for a known price in USD or something, then now actually it can have a value.
Yes, except
that isn't as volatile.
Right. Except then the business model relies on basically players sort of hosting Tupperware parties.
Yeah.
And trying to get all their friends to buy games so that they can get referrals, except games are cheap. Games are like 5, 10, 15.
Yeah. The question
bucks.
is, where is the money actually coming from in this whole system?
And not only that, but like,
right, because money has to go into the system.
It has to go in there.
So where? Right. So who's putting the money in there? And that was
So the whole thing
very unclear.
I mean, as far as I understand, what basically you're seeing is people are looking at Bitcoin and saying, "Holy shit! Somebody just created billions of dollars worth of money that is only useful for just being worth something. Like that's what it's for. It's just worth something.
It's money.
Right?
Yeah, right.
And so the ability to create digital scarcity means you can just manufacture value. That's the like dollar signs in the eyes that all these investors are seeing, right? And so anytime a company says we're making our own cryptocurrency,
that just means they're making face scarcity so they can sell things for larger
monopoly money.
amounts of money.
It's just scarce monopoly money. That's all it is.
So what I think is fascinating about this is we're witnessing. So people have been talking about like the Bitcoin bubble, because its price is going up like crazy, and because Bitcoin has surged, we're getting shitloads of investors and startups trying to figure out how to sort of ride this blockchain value wave. None of them know how the fuck to use it or what it even does.
So it's just the Wild West of ideas.
It's just the Wild West of ideas. This is basically the internet in 1995 through 1999, right? So referendum is like pets.com, right? So you're going to have all these companies that are going to be starting up. They're going to last a couple years. They're going to ride investor funding for a while. Some of them will be purchased by larger companies, which will then cause an implosion in those companies. Or they'll just collapse on their own once the investor funding dries up, when everybody realizes that these companies don't actually
do anything useful.
They don't do anything useful, and they don't actually have a revenue model that people can.
Yeah, the revenue model is just Bitcoin.
We made a thing. So.
Well, I mean, and Adam also pointed out a really interesting thing about blockchain and how it works, which I did not know personally myself, which is the CPU intensity of it.
Yeah, well, the idea is it's a distributed. The whole idea of blockchain is that's a technology that allows you to have basically a distributed database. So that if you think of like the way that you store things in Git, for example, for the programmers out there, where it's decentralized, everybody has a full copy of the code base in that case. And with a cryptocurrency, there are multiple kinds of technologies for it, but the general idea is that there's no one centralized place that just has the entire blockchain, and the chain is the sequence of all the transactions and all the things that we created.
So that's the important part, right? It's the whole sequence from beginning to now.
Right. And so people basically have to volunteer to be storing this entire sequence, kind of in the same way that on the internet people volunteer to host websites and that sort of thing. But to be one of those things, like to be one of those nodes that's managing blockchain stuff, is just very computationally costly. So it's not just a matter of like you just get to invent cryptocurrency and then just have people use it, and then somehow this is like you've freely made money that people can now use. It's actually, there's a cost there. The cost is just a different one. It's no longer producing a good or whatever. It's consuming CPU cycles on people's devices. And even in something like creating, I think there was something I was looking at the different blockchain technologies, and one of them was bragging about how it can manufacture a new coin, right? Because these are, again, computationally expensive, every 5 seconds,
right?
Which is like, if you're a computer person, that is fucking slow, right?
Yep, right.
And if you want to manufacture, billions of these or whatever because you're trying to do something.
Yeah, one of the ideas I asked was, could we use this for some sort of inventory management or something like that?
And the answer is yes, if we wanted it to take 5 seconds for us to be able, in the best case scenario, for us to be able to now make a new, coin-like device that mimics like a unique item or something, right? So it's not just free digital stuff. There's actually a very high technical
resource
cost to
yeah.
it. So you can't just use it for absolutely anything. Though someday, if computational power gets high enough and enough good blockchain tech gets developed, that might actually be true. But for now, anyway, you can't just go use it. You can't just say, "Ooh, I have an awesome idea about how I can use blockchain for managing users in my service, or managing these digital goods that I'm just creating on the fly." So that everybody has a unique one that they can sell to each other. And that
again, I mean, this is
just not that easy.
This is exactly the internet in the 90s, where basically people just said, I have a thing I want to do. What if I did it
on
with
the internet?
Right,
exactly.
And then whether it was a good or bad business idea, people just got excited about the fact that it was using the internet. So they just investment money just poured
about
in.
Blockchain for email? Since email was the thing that actually the internet was the best thing at, is there an equivalent? Is there a blockchain for email?
Well, so here's what I suggest for all of our listeners out there. If you got any, actually, even if you don't have any level of technical savvy, don't even worry about it. Just move over to Silicon Valley.
Put a pitch deck together. About how you're going to just pick a problem.
Just say cryptocurrency a lot of times. Say blockchain.
Blockchain.
Maybe throw an Uber in there. Blockchain for Ubers.
It doesn't matter what your industry is. Do you fish up oysters? Use blockchain, right? Just talk about how you're going to revolutionize this industry with blockchain technology. Just go from building to building. It doesn't even have to be a building with investors in it. You'll still get funding.
You get covered in money.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Then
just show them a graph of Bitcoin's trading valuation.
So basically, we think,
then you take all that money, you move back out of Silicon Valley, get that money out of there. Okay.
Yep.
We got to, because gentrification is a real problem
Bitcoin.
there. We got to bring the property values down there so people can actually afford their rent, right?
Because that money gets devalued the moment you get it, if you're actually in Silicon Valley when you get it.
Right? That's right.
Yeah.
So you move, maybe to the Midwest somewhere.
Yeah.
That money's going to go a long way. Just watch your company slowly collapse, but that's okay, because that's how it works. And then you're good to go.
Yep.
So just ride that blockchain investment wave. Okay. Well,
that's been investing advice for Butterscotch Shenanigans.
But seriously,
there's a bubble.
There's a
blockchain bubble.
It's not a Bitcoin bubble, though.
It's not a Bitcoin bubble. It's actually a blockchain bubble, and we're watching the start of it. So my bet is, I don't know how fast this thing's going to move, but it's going to get out of control over the next couple of years.
But as with the internet bubble, though, there were some things that came out of there and did spectacularly.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's just that the overall cost of that was very, very high, and that's the kind of thing we're probably going to see again.
Yeah. So this is fun. This is it's a great rhino.
I feel like we haven't actually gotten a bubble because we were kids back when that, we were just those dumbo kids back when this happened.
We don't have our own bubble.
We don't have our own bubble.
And
we had the housing bubble, which
we were kind of in college, so which
actually impacted, regular people, which was a bummer. So I want a good tech bubble.
A good tech bubble.
It's like really not great for the people who are involved with it, But it like happens to billionaires and stuff. Like I want to see that bubble.
Billionaires who are like, I don't really know how this works, but I'm gonna throw 10 million to this company, 10 million to that company. Watch it all pop. So that's happening. All right, well, that's all we have for you guys.
Butterscotch Radamus over there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So be sure to tune in next week. And we'd like to thank our studio wrangler, Monique, and our producer, Fat Bard, for putting this episode together, and the Bscotch dev team for having our back while we record this podcast. Special thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running. And if you'd like to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can head over to the Discord server, which is at discord.gg/Bscotch. Come say, hey, I think nowadays we've got like 35,000 people in there.
At least. But I think they actually
with sort of a margin of error of about 34,000.
Yeah, it turns out that they weren't ready for it, so they actually don't show zeros after those Those ones. So,
Yeah, Discord just wasn't prepared for
yeah.
this.
So it might be
big.
30 million, or I mean,
Who knows?
Could be
you couldn't
35.
say.
We don't know.
Yeah, they might have
We
actually
don't
just
know.
added some zeros. It's
As far as we know, it only goes up to 2-3 digits. And then beyond that, there's just no way to. There's no way to know. So, also, if you would like to adorn your body with Butterscotch merch, check out our shop, which is over at shop.bscotch.net. And also, I want to say I've been listening to a lot of other podcasts lately, and there are a lot of advertisements in these things.
Yeah.
So, if you appreciate that we don't throw ads at you throughout this podcast, maybe hop on over to shop.bscotch.net. Show us,
buy something.
show us your appreciation. Get yourself a nice mug or
Buy some
stickers.
DigiGames, or just give us some Bitcoin.
Just give us some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or maybe just let us be investors in your new blockchain startup. Also, we have a mailbox. So if you'd like to send us some weird meat piece ween lore or a bucket of M&Ms, you can head on over to mailbox.bscotch.net. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.